Hey guys, it's Amy Shaber, and I'm here to do our last PLU class, if you're going to do it online or if you just want to be able to watch this later. And we're going to talk about how to do some basic photo editing using a free online photo editor called Pixlr.com. So this is Pixlr. The URL is right here, pixlr.com, and it is free. You can download a version for your computer if you like, or you can just interface with it on your computer, which is what I prefer to do with students. That way I'm not having to download anything. If you scroll down, you have three options. You have Pixlr-O-Matic, which is sort of like an Instagram, like you can just kind of put filters on things. You have Pixlr Express, which you can put filters and you can add text. So that's an easy way to make like internet memes and things like that. Or you can do Pixlr Editor, which is what we're going to do today. So you would just click on Launch Web App and wait just a moment. And it's going to open this up. And this is the deal that you have with Pixlr. They'll always have like a little ad over here since you're doing the free version. So let me talk to you really quickly why I like using Pixlr as opposed to other free online programs. First of all, you can download Adobe Photoshop as shareware. Adobe has made a free version of that, but because of licensing, most schools can't download all those free versions. They actually have to pay. And so Photoshop is a really expensive program. Usually you have to buy the whole Creative Suite, which involves Photoshop and DreamWorks and Adobe Illustrator, sorry. And it can cost anywhere from like $700, right? So, oh, sorry, my computer's yelling at me. There we go. Since we don't want to buy that, we want to use this online version, right? And there's other online versions that are really, really nice. There's one called GIMP you may have heard of. But I like Pixlr because Pixlr has the same interface that students would engage in with Photoshop. So if you're teaching students at the elementary level or the middle school level and you can't afford Photoshop, at least in high school, once they go on to use Photoshop, they'll know where things are. The file is in the same place, the save is in the same place, a lot of the tools are in the exact same place, it uses layers in the same way. So they'll have a nice foundation, and then if you're in a high school that maybe can't afford Photoshop, then they can also use this, so if they go on later in their life and they do have Photoshop, you've given them this great foundation. So what we're going to do today is we're going to use Pixlr to create an Arcimboldo inspired food face. If you don't know who Arcimboldo is, he was kind of like a early Renaissance artist, and he did all those crazy paintings. They're portraits, but if you look closely, they're made up of things like individual pieces of food or fish or whatever. And there are online places that will generate Arcimboldo food faces for you. So whenever I teach this, I always have some very awesome art teacher who's like, oh, there's a website that just does all that for you. And she's right, or he's right, and that's totally awesome, and I'm totally down for that. But the reason why I like this project with Pixlr is it's a great lesson to introduce students into thinking in layers, thinking how to use Photoshop. It gives them a great foundation. So that's why I do it. I mean, you could come up with a ton of other ways to introduce Photoshop or Pixlr to students, but this is the way I do it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to follow these exact directions right here. I like to do what's called click-by-click directions. So each direction is a different click of your mouse or computer. And we're going to use these directions to make an Arcimboldo food face. That's your kind of online assignment for this last class. And it doesn't have to be like super fantastic. You can make it as simple or as complicated as you like. You can see my version here is pretty simple. And I'm going to give you a Word doc version of these directions so you can alter it however you need to. And also the thing you need to know about any kind of click-by-click directions is software is always changing. So actually I've taught this lesson for going on 5 years now, and every year I've had to tweak the directions because Pixlr keeps changing to make it better. So I have to kind of tweak the directions to make more sense for my students. So don't be afraid to tweak your directions. So the first part of my directions tell everybody to go and find the different food things they want to have for their food face. I always pick fruits and vegetables because that's kind of how my mind thinks, but your students will say, can I do M&Ms? Can I do bags of Doritos? You know, I generally just say yes because I'm just trying to get them to understand how to edit images, so I don't really care what they're using as long as it's food and it's appropriate for school. I am going to tell you that because we're all new to Pixlr and photo editing, you want to pick images with a white background, and you really, really want to stress that to students students, it'll make sense to you as to why in just a moment. So what you'll do is you'll Google search for them, and students always want to right click and save the thumbnails, but that's just really not a good idea. The reason is that it's actually a thumbnail, so it's really, really small, and you see these numbers here where this one says 550 by 367. That's actually the number of pixels, and so that's the size of that image, and you're not actually getting that size if you just right click and save on the thumbnail. You want the larger image. So you want to go ahead and find a watermelon or whatever it is you like. Let's say I like this one, and you want to click on it, and where it says view image, you want to go view the image. And then once you're here, you'll right click, you'll go to save image as, and you'll find a place on your computer that's a good place to save that. So I'm going to make a new folder for it. I'm going to call it food faces. I'm going to double click, and I'm going to save. And I'm going to do that for every little piece I need. So like I'm going to do oranges and strawberries here, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to pause it, and then I'll have it all done when I come back. All right, so now I've gotten all the images that I need, and what I'm going to do is I'm in here in Pixlr, and it gives you some options. We're going to pick the create new image, and it's going to give us some presets. We're just going to keep all those presets because we're new and we don't want to make it more complicated than we have to. So we'll click OK. And this is your file right here. And this is your layer box, and if you pretend like each layer is a clear piece of acetate, that's the easiest way to think about it. You might have to come up with a more simplified way of explaining that to your students. I usually say clear pieces of plastic, and Pixlr, just like Photoshop, lets you manipulate each piece of plastic. So I like to get rid of this little padlock. That's just me. The first thing you're going to do is students always want to go to File, Open, and they want to open up each image, because that's what they're used to doing in like Word and places like that. But this is different. We actually want to open the image onto this file we already have. So what you do is you're going to go to Layer, and you're going to go to Open Image as a Layer. So that's going to enable you to go and find your food face, and you always want to start with the biggest part. So I'm going to start with my watermelon, and I'm going to click Open, and there's my watermelon. Now I would tell my students this watermelon's a little small. It could take up more space. So what you'll do is you'll go to Edit, Retransform, and you can stretch it to whatever size you want. You can make it wider, whatever you like. Click off to the side. And Pixlr and Photoshop are both really, really good about asking you, are you sure you want to do this? Most of the time, you're going to say, yeah, I do. So there you go. Now you have your background. So the next thing is you might need an eyeball or something. So you're going to go to Layer, Open Images Layer, and you're going to find the next image you want. In this case, I'm going to use my orange here. So you can see already where this is great because students are having to repeat the same process over and over again. Now students are going to say, well, how do I get rid of this white? And they're going to want to go use the eraser tool. The eraser tool is awesome for little tiny areas, right? But this is a big chunk of white. So what we're going to do is we're going to click right here on this tool, and if you hover there for a second, it tells you it's the magic wand tool. You're going to click on it. You're going to come over here. You're going to make sure that your orange layer is highlighted blue, and it is. You're going to click on this white, and see how the marching ants appear around it? That tells you you've selected the white. And then you're going to go to Edit, and you're going to go to Cut. And ta-da! The white is totally gone. If you ever don't like something you do, you can go to Edit, Undo, or Control-Z, and it comes back. Now, I'm going to show you one more thing. What the magic wand is doing is there's a number. So when I click on magic wand, you can see it has a tolerance number. The larger the number, the more color it's going to pick up that's close to the pixel you click. So think about that as a percentage. It's looking for colors that are within a certain percentage of that color. So since this is solid white and it's next to a color that's very obviously not even close to solid white, I would say you could turn that tolerance up to maybe something like 60. And then when I click on it and I go Edit, Cut, I get less of that weird little white halo I had before. So that's kind of cool. Now, again, I might need to make this a little bit smaller, so I'm going to go Edit, Free Transform, and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller until I like it, and I'm going to move it to where I want it to go. And students often forget this, but you have a Move tool in your toolbox. You can click right here. Oh, I do want to apply these changes. This is my Move tool, and I can click it, and I can move whatever layer I have highlighted. So in this case, I have my orange layer highlighted, and I can move it around. Now, at this point, you need two eyes. So a lot of students would say, well, let me just go to Layer, Open Images Layer, and get it and resize it and all that stuff. But that can be a little timely. So what I like to do is if I go over here to my layer and I right-click with my mouse, I have an option to duplicate layer. And so now actually I have two layers. Do you see how I've got Layer 2, which is my orange, and Layer 2 Copy, which is my second orange? I can actually go over here, make sure my Move tool is highlighted. I can click on my orange, bum, da da da, and I have 2 oranges. And I had to do minimal work for that. Students love this trick and they will figure it out very quickly. So you want to make sure they know that. So you would continue to do this until you have something you like. I would encourage students to save a lot because Pixlr has a tendency to crash. So what you'll do to save is you go to File, Save. You might want to give it a name here. I always like to up the quality to as high as I can get it. And while you're still working on it, you want to save it as a PXD, which is a layered pixel image, or Pixlr image. What that means is, let's say you're working in the computer lab and you need to save it and you're not done yet. Okay, so you save it. That means the next day that student can come back and they can open up that file and all of their layers will still be there. If they save it as a JPEG or PNG file, what happens is it smooshes all those layers together because it thinks that you're done. So you save as a PXD layer, or PXD file, excuse me, until you're finished. So the first thing I would tell my students is, while you're working, we're always going to save as a PXD file. So you go, you save that, give it a name. Okay, now let's say I'm finished with it. Then that's when I would go File, Save, and I would usually tell students to pick a JPEG image because that's what they're most familiar with. The JPEG is just a really good photo image. It's not the best, but it's pretty good. And you can click and save, and that's your finished version, okay? So this is just a great intro. So you can see there's other places, like I said, you can go online that will automatically make a food face for you, just like there's the Mr. Picasso head that enables you to make a Picasso really, really fast. Those things exist, but this is a great kind of foundation, introduction to how do layers work, how does the magic wand tool work, how do some of these basic things in Photoshop or Pixlr work. Now, I've also made one more thing for you guys. This is the Pixlr.com tips. And it has a copy right here of the toolbox, and it tells you what all of these little tools do, and it also tells you how to save. When I'm working in the computer lab with my students, every single student has one of these because they will ask you 100 times, how do I save? And then they will ask you 100 times, what does this tool do? And you can say, listen, you need to have enough self-efficacy to look at the worksheet that I've provided for you and figure some of this out on your own, because that's really what photo editing is about. It's about trial and error. So I hope this was helpful to you. Please don't hesitate to email me if you have any kind of questions or anything like that. You know, I try to respond in a timely manner. And it's been awesome having you guys in class. I've loved it. Thanks so much.